I remember the day she told me she loved me. We were sitting in our small living room, the soft glow of the evening sun filtering through the curtains. She smiled at me in a way that made my chest tighten, and in that moment, I believed every word. Her voice was warm, familiar, and filled with a sincerity I thought I knew by heart. I leaned closer, and she reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I love you," she whispered. And I believed her. It was a simple phrase, yet it carried all the weight of a lifetime. I thought of the years we had spent together, the mornings we had shared over coffee, the laughter, and even the arguments that had woven us together. I felt that our bond was unshakable. I didn't notice the slight tension behind her eyes, the way her smile faltered for a fraction of a second, like a shadow passing across her face. I didn't see it, and I never suspected that behind that very smile, something else was quietly taking shape. A few days later, I started noticing subtle changes. She would disappear for hours, claiming errands or visits with friends. Her phone was always nearby, vibrating too often for my comfort, yet she dismissed my questions with light laughter, telling me I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust the woman who had whispered those words of love. And so, I buried the small doubts deep inside, convincing myself they were just figments of my imagination. But my instincts, though muted, refused to let go. One evening, I found a message on her phone by accident, a fleeting glimpse of someone named A. The words were casual, intimate, familiar in a way that chilled me. She was making plans, secret plans that had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the life we had built. My heart sank as a terrible realization began to take shape. She loved me in words, but her actions were betraying every promise she had ever made. I confronted her gently at first, asking simple questions, trying to understand. She laughed it off, saying I was overthinking, that I was imagining things that weren't there. Her hand rested on mine, soft and warm, and I almost wanted to believe her again. Almost. But the unease in my chest refused to let go. There was a duplicity in her eyes now, something I had never seen before. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Over the next few days, I watched her more closely. I watched the way she typed messages when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she would suddenly leave the room with a hurried excuse. Each lie, no matter how small, felt like a knife twisting deeper into my trust. And yet, she still told me she loved me, smiling as if nothing had changed. The words felt hollow, echoing in the space between us, and I realized the truth I had been avoiding: her love, as she expressed it, was no longer mine. Then came the night that broke everything. I followed her discreetly, unable to stop myself. My heart pounded as I watched her meet him, the man who had been hidden in the corners of our life, who had been quietly waiting while I believed in her devotion. They embraced, whispered, laughed as if the world outside didn't exist. And in that moment, I felt a cold, numb clarity. She had been planning to leave with him all along, and every "I love you" had been a mask, a carefully constructed lie. I returned home, silent, my mind a storm of emotions. Anger, sorrow, disbelief, they all collided inside me. She walked in moments later, cheerful and unaware that I had seen the truth. She kissed me on the cheek, and I held her hand, feeling the warmth I had once trusted. My chest ached, but I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply let her gestures wash over me, carrying the weight of everything I now knew. That night, I lay awake, replaying every moment we had shared. Every smile, every tender word, every promise suddenly felt tainted, rewritten in the light of betrayal. The pain was sharp, but beneath it, there was a strange, quiet resolve. I realized that love, even when it turns out to be false, has a way of teaching you about your own strength, about boundaries, about the truths you refuse to ignore. In the days that followed, I confronted her with calm I didn't fully feel. I spoke with precision, recounting everything I had seen, everything I had discovered. There was no screaming, no dramatic confrontation. Just the steady, unwavering gaze of someone who finally saw clearly. She tried to explain, to justify, to weave her narrative of love and desire, but I no longer needed her words to understand the truth. As she packed her things, preparing to leave, I noticed how her hands trembled, how her confident smile faltered. The power she had once wielded, the power of secrecy and deceit, was gone. I didn't gloat, didn't relish her fear. I simply stood there, a silent witness to the consequences of her choices. And in that silence, I felt a strange liberation, a freedom that comes only when you refuse to let betrayal define you. Walking away from the life I had believed in was not easy. The house felt emptier, quieter, but there was honesty in that emptiness, a truth that no lie could corrupt. I began to rebuild myself, slowly, deliberately, focusing on the pieces of my life that had been overshadowed by deception. I discovered a resilience I hadn't known I possessed, a clarity that comes only when illusions shatter. Weeks turned into months, and the pain gradually softened, replaced by acceptance. I no longer wondered about her or him, no longer questioned the sincerity of words that had once hurt me so deeply. I had learned that love is not just spoken, it is lived, proven through trust, devotion, and respect. And when those things are absent, the heart must find its own way to heal. Now, when I think back to that day she told me she loved me, I don't feel anger or regret. I feel a quiet understanding. Love, even when it betrays you, teaches you about yourself. And betrayal, as painful as it is, can become the turning point where you discover the depth of your own strength, the limits of your endurance, and the courage to embrace a life that belongs solely to you. Did this story touch your heart? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more hearts can feel these stories too.